Okay.
All right. Let's just start off like we did before. Like,
Okay.
right, you live in Lawrence, Kansas, right? And
I,
you,
I live in Lawrence, and I teach medicinal chemistry up at the University of Kansas. In summer of '97, I took a summer position at the University of Innsbruck, where I was going to teach a course that summer in medicinal chemistry. So the only way to get to Innsbruck is to fly into some other city, or the only inexpensive way is to do it that way. So I decided to go to Munich for a couple of days before I headed down to Innsbruck. And so I fly on over, get off the plane, 8 o'clock in the morning. I can't sleep on a plane, so I am dead tired, but I can't check into the hotel either. So I decided that I would do some kind of sightseeing while I'm in town. And I decided to check out, at the suggestion of the hotel clerk, the Lenbach House, which was having exhibitions. Well, basically, I just went there because they said, well, it's a good place. It was more modern art, which I'm more interested in. I knew some of the artists that were had exhibitions there. I knew Kandinsky, I knew Klee, and so I decided that I would go there and wander around a bit. And so I found my way through the fabulous Munich subway system to the museum, and I go in, and they're having a special exhibition. And I'm just looking around at the art, and the artist turns out to have been Albert Bloch, who I'd never heard of. And I'm looking around at the stuff, and it's pretty impressive, and the place is packed. There are people all over the places looking at everything, and I finally started to ask, well, who is this guy? I'd never heard of him. I figured I'm not an art historian by any means, but I've gone to plenty of museums in my time, and I had somehow missed his work before, and I was astonished to see that he had done most of his work in my hometown of Lawrence, Kansas, where he lived not 1 mile from where I was living at the time in town. And so it was sort of like going to Germany and having a little bit of home right there waiting for me halfway across the world.
what would you say to somebody who would say, okay, you had to go halfway around the world to discover this painter, this master expressionist painter who lived less than a mile from where you live now?
I was pretty surprised. Typically, I would have expected there to have been a lot of information in town about his work. Certainly, I've now, since I've gone back and looked, I know there are a couple of pieces in the Spencer Art Gallery, which is, of course, the KU Art Gallery, but certainly not enough to have given me an idea of exactly how well known he was. One of the other things that I noticed is, because I thought this was a pretty interesting situation, I had occasion to talk to other people while I was in Europe, and I remember having dinner with some people in, I think it was in, it was in Innsbruck, actually. It was in Austria, and I happened to mention to some of the folks at the table that I had been to this exhibit, and they asked who it was, and I said Albert Bloch, and they were very enthusiastic and said, "Oh, one of the giants." Was one of the words that they used, and I was astonished that I had never heard of him.
What was your personal reaction to his work there at the Lenbach House in '97, walking in and seeing some of those paintings?
It was wonderful. I thought it was great. I spent all my time with his stuff and barely got around to see the Kandinsky that I had gone there to see.
Anything else you can say? What is it like for you? What was it like for you to look at those pictures? I mean, just go into it for me a little bit here. I mean, we're done with everything else. Let's just go into it for me a little bit on the interior.
I guess I'm not really sure what you're getting at. I mean, I certainly.
Just describe what it is for you to look at those pictures.
Oh, what do I think of his work? I thought the color was fantastic. It was the main thing that I noticed about it. I found it I found it very inviting type of art. It wasn't something I felt like I had to work really hard to at least get whatever appreciation I probably have of his work. I found it very comfortable.
Do you find its work acceptable? I mean, approachable, like inviting?
Yeah, absolutely. I found it enjoyable and accessible, and I thought it was one of the highlights of my time in Munich. Certainly.
What do you think it is? What is Lawrence for you now that you've come back to and discovered Albert Black? I mean, what do you think of now out there now when you look at the town of Lawrence and it's like, here was this master painter, lived in this town, and you leave and you come back and it's kind of like, I mean,
I wonder what else could be happening here that's that good.
does it alter your perception at all?
Great things can happen anywhere, and occasionally they even happen in your own hometown, and that's kind of a neat feeling.
Let's go ahead and cut. What film do we have left? Mark?
Coming back to Lawrence, it was a whole different perception. It was really neat to think that, well, great things are happening all over the world, but sometimes they even happen in your own hometown.
Well, okay. Well, describe to me kind of like a little bit. I mean, did you have much of an emotional reaction to Albert Bloch's work, to his paintings?
I don't deserve this at all, but I felt sort of proud that this was sort of a colleague of mine. He had taught at the University of Kansas, and that's what I do. And I found his work sort of comfortable and inviting.
And that's good. Let's just do a rollout. Anything you want to say? I mean, we're
I hope. Okay, well, no.
This was the 300-foot interview.
Okay.
Let's just back up a little bit. Tell us a little bit more, kind of like.
Wash your hand, Tim.
Sorry, your background and your position here in Lawrence, Kansas.
Well, I teach medicinal chemistry at the University of Kansas. I have been here for 14 years. I go around occasionally to different places to teach short courses or to give lectures. Is pretty common for people in my type of job. And on this particular occasion, I was teaching a course in Innsbruck, Austria, which required that I travel through Munich to get there. And when I was in Munich, one of the things I decided to do on that first day upon landing was to check out a museum, pretty much any museum, because I'm an art fan. I'm not an art critic or a historian. It's just something I do for personal pleasure, but it's something I always enjoy doing in a new city. And it was kind of this kind of rainy day, and so it was a perfect kind of day to spend in a gallery. And so
that was how you discovered Albert Bloch.
And that's how I discovered Albert Bloch, strictly by accident. I should thank the hotel clerk who sent me to the particular museum that day.
Have you gone on to like search out Bloch's work anyplace else here?
Well, not with a lot of success. I have gone to the University Art Museum, and they do have a couple of pieces there, but not very much.
They have it in the Nelson now. Winter and the Dead permanent acquisition,
Okay.
and the Chicago Institute of the Arts.
Don't get up to Chicago very often.
Couple of, how are we doing? That just rolled out, and that is.
What follows is 30 seconds street noise, room tone.
Bye.